Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you.
I am a student of the 60s. So I spent all of high school and all of college in the 60s. I grew up in that raucous decade, but I still had a feeling the military was calling me. When I made a decision for college, I picked St. Joe's because they had Air Force ROTC. Graduated and got commissioned in 1970, went to F4 training after that, and then that was an automatic pipeline to Vietnam. So I ended up in Vietnam in October of '71, which was really toward the end of the war.
The year was 1971. We didn't know it at the time, but Henry Kissinger was meeting in Paris with North Vietnam's Le Duc Tho, the beginning of secret peace talks. But in Indochina, the war went on.
On February 16th, 1972, we were on a forward air controller mission when we got hit by a surface-to-air missile, and we knew we were done. All of our indicators went to zero, the fire lights come on, the emergency lights come on. We were surrounded with periods of panic and just anger that we allowed ourselves to get hit. We both did a successful ejection, and we're floating down into a village during Tet, which is their big holiday season. Landed right in the village. They were waiting for us because they heard our jet crash. They saw two things floating in the sky, and we were not warmly greeted. And it took us about a day to get to Hanoi, and then the fun and games began there. And then it started a few days of being in isolation, which is just basically a dark room. And then they would interrupt you with periods of wake you up from your sleep, bring you in for interrogations, throw you back in your cell, which was totally dark, and then go through that cycle again for a couple of days. It took about a week till I got moved from isolation into solitary confinement, which, believe me, is an upgrade in the sense that you could actually see there was daylight. And then finally, after 75 days, was reunited with my pilot in a really crappy area of the Hanoi Hilton called Heartbreak Hotel. But at least I had a roommate. I survived that. There were periods there when I was really disappointed in myself, when I carried a lot of guilt because I felt that I hadn't done my best, that I hadn't really upheld the code of conduct to the best of my ability. But that was something that all POWs had to tolerate, in that we never really felt that we did our best. Admiral Stockdale, who was the senior POW, he and his leadership team decided that it was important to maintain an environment that the other POWs were comfortable with, which was organization and structure. And the slogan that they decided on was return with honor. So the folks that had been there for 4, 5, 6, 7 years knew what it was like to be tortured, to be beaten, to be starved, to be put in solitary and isolation. We had to hold our heads up high, regardless of how bad it was, because we knew when we got released, we wanted to return home with our honor and dignity intact.
I have asked for this radio and television time tonight for the purpose of announcing that we today have concluded an agreement to end the war and bring peace with honor in Vietnam.
We had been bombarded with propaganda for so long that we didn't believe anything the North Vietnamese captors said. I remember when they read us some statement in January of '73 that the war was over, we didn't believe it. It wasn't until March 28th of '73, which was the day I was released, that they came in and gave you some civilian clothes and told you to come out and get on a bus. We get on the plane and it was interesting. It was subdued. And it wasn't until 15 or 20 minutes after takeoff that we actually made it out of North Vietnam airspace. We're actually over the Pacific Ocean. There's this one picture where you see everybody raising. Well, that was my flight. It wasn't until then that we believed that we had been freed. Somebody asked me in a speech one time, can you describe your captivity in one word? And I said, developmental. In challenging circumstances, always do the right thing. Sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing to do, but always do the right thing. The major lessons that I learned from my POW time, I learned how important communications was. That was the lifeblood of the POW camps. Strength and resiliency. This is not meant as a joke. I'm happy to be alive. You know, every day you get up, people say, I look up and there's no dirt. and so far nobody has shot at me, it's a damn good day by any measure. So to me, it's all about balance and perspective. So for those that have been in a really traumatic situation like I was, most days are good days, relatively speaking. Enjoy your freedom. I mean, it is a very, very precious commodity. I'm not sure that we all know how valuable it is and how rare it is.